I am Deandrea Bell, and this is my summative blog for MBA 622, Organizational Behavior, Fall 2016 with Dr. Edelston at Washington University. There are various historical management theories and/or frameworks supporting organizational behavior. Due to both the kinds of work and societal changes, the theories then had adapted or changed with that situation or that kind of work and the management style that was needed to manage those type of people doing that specific type of work. The model that I often find myself standing behind or practicing most often is modern. Under modern, managers and organization are pulled together as it draws theories and science to recognize that we as managers must change as the work has changed, similar to the theories that have been produced over the years. So, for example, if I have a message that I need to give to 3 different employees and their job descriptions vary, I'm not going to give that same message to them all the same in the same context, because how they're going to apply it to whatever their role or whatever the expectation is as part of their job description would vary. Putting the focus on the people or the employees as an organization, I've learned to better understand introverts through the eyes of Susan Cain and her TED talk that she offered. As a manager, it's not only the perception of the customer that should impact your decision making, but also the employees. The way that they interpret what it is that you are giving them as a manager is the way in which they will react, because that's their reality. So if you are presenting the organization or your employees with a new initiative, a new change, and you're telling them that they just need to do it instead of presenting it in which it can be presented that's of value to them, then it's not going to get you the same end result. Another thing that was learned in this semester were emotions in the workplace. Typically, we do see employers and people saying that, the place of business and a work area is not a place where you should be bringing your emotions, and they usually are discouraged. But in all actuality, expression is completely normal and constructive. So, for example, if working on a project with 3 or 4 other leaders, and one leader tells another leader at the table that they don't agree with the idea, and they tell them why, if they had just kept that information to themselves, the group might not be able to better learn from the information that the leader who disagreed provided. And it kind of would be a setback. And also, it's not good for the leader who held that information in, especially if the tail end of the project didn't turn out the way they wanted. They would have felt like if they would have spoken up, they would have gotten a better result. The other example that comes to mind is discussing behavior concerns with an employee, and the employee sitting there, and you can see nonverbally that they're very frustrated. Encouraging them to explain to you as the manager why it is that they are frustrated and why it is that they're upset could be constructive. They might feel like you're the only manager who says the complaints or constructive criticism to them, or that might be the first time they heard it, in which might make the manager look like a bad guy, at which point in time they can encourage their peers to do some peer-to-peer constructive feedback, so that it doesn't seem like it's always the manager in all actuality, especially if it was the employees. Motivation is another huge takeaway in this semester. I'd like to think that it's the biggest takeaway, since that is the one that I've implemented the most at my current employer. I found that I've reached out to multiple different employees on different shifts and different job descriptions and asked them for input on what type of incentives were most valued to them. We've learned in this course that one motivator for one employee might not be the same motivator for the next. Therefore, offering some type of monetary incentive for example, Sheila, who is on day shift, is not going to be the same thing that can drive the results that you might want for James, who just wants some recognition for all his hard work that he's doing. So having conversations or identifying what is the most important motivator for that person is really should be what drives what motivations you put out there. Behavior theory support behavior followed by good outcomes. So motivation and providing incentives for good behavior is more likely to produce more good behavior than punishment or disliked outcomes for poor behavior or disliked behavior. As a manager, it's also important to identify the most appropriate medium for the message when providing information. So, for example, I had some people who I know never check email who I had to come up to them when they weren't really busy or when they were calm and relaxed and ask them, what type of things would be good incentives for you. Whereas other people communicated via text. Other people had varied or better relationships with an off-shift manager. Therefore, I asked them to present the information because I know that they would get a better answer by engaging with that person that they have a little bit more relationship with than maybe engaging with me. In addition, formal and informal communication should always meet the 5 basic functions of interpersonal communication: the control, informational, motivation, and emotional. Another situation or another topic that was discussed and was learned is how often both groups and teams are used interchangeably, although they are completely different. Also recognizing specific attributes of a group or a person that's working in a group. For example, prior to this course, I would have likely paired introverts with introverts and extroverts with extroverts, which really would be a setback to them. In all actuality, in taking this course, I learned that I, for example, wouldn't be best paired with another type A personality person when doing group work because we kind of have the same type of drivers. And it really wouldn't be most beneficial to us. You kind of need to have people who are going to match with other people by being complementary. So if I have someone who has really good ideas, but they're always afraid to say anything, I might pair them with someone who's a little bit more outspoken so that they could provide that communication for the group so that then they could then further and achieve whatever goal that they have set. Also, another topic that was discussed was ethics and organizational behavior. We have an innate sense of what's right versus what's wrong. However, there are things that should be taken into consideration when evaluating that. For example, one person who grew up on one side of the country, maybe in Brazil, and a person who grew up in South Florida is not going to have the same moral compass or the same right versus wrong and the same values due to the fact that not just because they were in 2 geographical locations, other considerations could be age, it could be gender. There are a lot of different things that make up, or a lot of different variables that make up what encompasses a specific person's ethical considerations. Intercultural communication or intercultural consideration is also something. We learned also about the Hofstede, and his theory basically offers some generalization in cultural dimensions, which as a manager can help you as long as you're being cognizant and increasing your sense of awareness, which is extremely important. If you go a little bit too far with the generalization, you could be categorizing or stereotyping people, which is not something that as a leader you would want to do. This concludes my summative blog for MBA 622, Organizational Behavior, Fall of 2016.